Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you
how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of, and what is the plan to overcome that fear, and what is the plan to enact that passion.
What we want to talk to you today a little bit is about finding your strengths, and this is on a personal level. If you guys are leaders, you can do this with your teams and with your organizations. And this is a fundamental belief that Marissa and I have, and we stole this from all sorts of incredible people that we got a chance to learn from. And that is, last 3 months or so, we've spoken a lot about how do you want to improve something going into the new year, or what is going to be your New Year's resolution. And what that all does is it's good. It helps you round out some of your weaknesses. But what you really want to do is you want to figure out how you can build upon your strengths. I believe John C. Maxwell said something along the lines of, if you start working on your weaknesses, you're going to go from very bad to just bad. But if you start working on your strengths, you can start getting up into that 3%, that 2%, that 1% of your industry or your field. And then that's when you're going to be able to really differentiate yourself and start to pull away, break away. Think of it as like a track meet. When you really start to have that edge, it comes in that top percentage of your time. So finding your strengths is a very important thing. And then building upon your strengths is going to be the next big thing. So how do we do that? And that's what we want to talk to you a little bit about today. Right, Mark?
I think it was cool. Last night we were actually listening to Tim Ferriss talk on YouTube. I don't know exactly what YouTube video it was, but he was also too talking about finding your strengths and creating your own category in life, in business, in whatever you do that follows suit with your strengths. So, for example, he has the 4-hour work week, where he thinks that, you must have some kind of balance in your life. It's not just all go, go, go. You must enjoy, you must travel, you must experience. And he created this own genre of business called the 4-hour work week. And that is one of his strengths that he likes to teach upon. So then he's telling you, okay, now look, within yourself, what is your strength that you can teach upon? What is this own category that you can now bring to the world that's never been created before? And I thought that was fascinating, because what a way to differentiate yourself from somebody else, and to create your own category, whether that be in business, whether that be in health, whether that be in, whatever profession that you have.
Yeah. It's called the law of category, and it's really about differentiating yourself from others. And if you can't own or dominate a category, then create one that you can.
Yes.
So that's really what that was all about. And as far as building upon your strengths, I want to give you guys a couple examples of how this works and how different this can be depending on what your strengths are. So when I was back at West Point, we had presentations that we had to do a lot, right? So you guys know me, Mr. Rock Jock football guy, wasn't exactly the cream of the crop as far as academia, right? So,
well, first explain what West Point is for somebody who doesn't know, because
sure.
I barely knew what West Point
Sure.
was.
So West Point is where I went to my university experience. It's United States Military Academy at West Point. It's one of the most prestigious universities in the entire world. It's a leadership institution. It's in West Point, New York, and it's where most of the military officers in the country go to university. It was ranked in 2009 as Forbes #1 university in the country, and I think again in 2016, beating Harvard, Yale, Stanford, all those big names that you guys normally hear of that have much better marketing campaigns. West Point beat them all out. So very, very difficult to go to, very difficult to stay in, and very difficult to succeed, because it's based on 3 pillars: academics, military, and physical. So you have to be very well-rounded to make sure that you can get through this experience. Now, when I was there, I was with people at top of their class when they were in high school. They were at the top of their class, and they were some of the most intelligent, brightest people I have ever met in my life. You know what they also were? Extremely hardworking and extremely smart. Those were, I would say, probably 60 to 70% of the people there, their #1 strengths were conscientiousness and IQ. Those are some of the things that they could take with them, and they could kill it, right? So here's what happened one time. We were in a class, and there were a couple football players in there, and the football players were more like me. What's going on, guys? Welcome, welcome. And the football players were a little bit more like me. They were kind of they were smart. We all had to be smart to get in, but football definitely helped us get in relative to some of the other students. So we all hung out, and somehow we got picked. We all picked each other to do this group project. And what was funny was none of us were really the right ones to dig into the books and get the academic side of the project right. So we had a couple other groups that were really smart people, and they end up doing this presentation based on their own academic merit. And it was it was so good. They had all their sources and everything backed up. They just killed it. And then there was us, and we had to go. And we were up until 2 a.m. the night before.
This bunch of rock jock football players in one group.
Yeah, so all the rock jock football players in one group. So I decided I was going to play my strengths. So what was my strengths? Well, I was a smooth talker, I was charismatic, and I was kind of funny. So I get up there, and I just loosened up. I told a couple jokes, and we just made the presentation super fun, super funny. We rocked it with confidence, and the merit of the presentation was basically worthless. But the instructor just thought it was so fun and so exciting that he didn't even notice the presentation was bad. So we ended up getting an A, and then a couple of these smart guys only got like B's and C's. And it's like, well, what does that mean? It's just about playing your strengths. So if you're not the smartest guy in the room, who do you know? What do you know? Who can you get in contact with? I mean, we used to go to this restaurant in town where they'd serve ice cream. And so many different people at this restaurant would go in there. They'd work really hard. They'd have part-time jobs, all this different stuff. And then they would go and they would pay the person with their money that they earned. But me, I just made friends with the manager, and he used to just scoop me freaking free ice cream all the time because I was friends with the manager. So it's playing your strengths, right? It's just about playing your strengths. What ones do you have that you can use? You can do stuff like that. If you're charismatic, you can sweet talk people and get the same result as someone that works really hard and goes through the actual channels to get there. Call it unfair, call it whatever, but that's just playing your strengths in the right way. So that's just one story I wanted to share with you guys about finding your strengths. So that was one of mine. What are some of yours? And how do you find them so that you can play them? And that's what we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I'm definitely not a rock jock football player, but
Sure?
too had
You do
to
look like a rock jock football player to me.
Yeah.
When I see you, Marissa, I think rock jock football. That is what I
Good one.
That's what I think.
So like when I was in college, getting through college, I had to partner up with a lot of people who were very conscientious because that is something that I tend to lack in. Who else is like non-conscientious? Give some hearts because I am definitely more of the creative, visionary, I'm going to get this done in 10 years kind of person, but what does the day-to-day mundane tiny tasks that I have to get done, goal setting, look like? So that was great. When I was in college, I partnered up with a bunch of people who were, go-getters, who were super conscientious, that knew the little steps to get to that big goal of completing the project. I knew what the end result was going to look like. I could see the vision. I was very
So here's
creative.
what you did, though. You took your ability to make friends and be charismatic to partner with someone that can offset your weaknesses. So you're not like working on your weaknesses
knew
per
that in
se.
college.
You're using your strengths to offset your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. It's very different. You're using your strengths to offset
This
your
also
weaknesses.
applies to business too. If you want to create a business and you know your own weaknesses, find a business partner that complements you. Because if you have two people who are exactly the same in one business, you're constantly going to be butting heads because you both have these grand visions, or you're both super tedious and very, controlling when it comes to the little tasks that need to get done. And again, you're going to keep butting heads. And we've run into that because we're practically like the same person. So we need somebody who's very organized, very conscientious, who's going to take both of our businesses to the next level because we lack in that area of doing the mundane.
Yeah, so here's what we do, guys. So Joel's talking about the Myers-Briggs test. Yeah, so I am an ENFP, which is the one that everyone pretty much finds useless when you go into like any circles or whatever, because people want the doers. They want someone that's going to just take in charge of the unit. But ENFP, that's I'm extroverted. Obviously, I talk to you guys, all that different stuff. And then
And for those on Instagram, he's talking about the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, so the Myers-Briggs, that's one personality test that you guys can take. And I'm going to give you a couple more recommendations here of which ones I like to use and I like to go off. So one of my favorite is StrengthsFinder. Strengths Finder 2.0, it's very good. It's got a whole bunch of different options you can do within it. I usually make my clients do it before they sign up, and I also, before we did our Sweat Equity, we had those clients do it as well. And it gives us an opportunity to see where we can start playing those strengths. I think that's fundamentally where you need to go. You need to start to learn where you, okay, so like let's say E and I on the Myers-Briggs is introverted, extroverted. So you can label yourself or whatever you want to do. For this discussion, let's just say you are introverted or extroverted. The difference between introverted and extroverted is, do you get more energy from being around people, or do you get more energy from being in more solitude or like some, more quiet experiences, I should say. So if depending on those two things, typically a lot of other characteristics fall into place behind those. So if you, so that's why it's a really easy differentiator to figure out if you are introverted or extroverted, because typically, and this is just typically, it can be very different. Typically extroverted people, they want to speak more. They want to go out and network more. They want to, they're sometimes more creative. They like they like different things. They like a lot of variety. Typically, introverted people like to tinker with things. Sometimes they like to be, do little hobbies. They like to do stuff like that. They can do jobs or careers where they work by themselves a lot of times. They can, they typically have very good follow through. They like to be hands-on. There's a lot of those types of things, right? So you want to see, and this is just a generalization. There are so many different variables of this within it. But when you can see if you're an introvert or an extrovert, that's a very easy, quick way to figure out, okay, we've already narrowed down a lot of these things. Like, yeah, I don't want to be sitting in my bedroom all day Saturday, depressed, reading romance novels if you're an introvert. And if I'm an extrovert, I'm not just going to be at a party sniffing cocaine off of a table.
Oh, okay.
It's not like that, right?
See, I don't know what I am. I don't know if I'm, hold on, you're annoying me. Can you sit up like tall and straight?
Well, I'm trying to
You're
look down.
slouching and it's driving me nuts.
I'm leaning back.
Just sit up.
Okay.
And there we go. Now we're at the same height.
Now I'm out of the scope of the camera for Instagram, so that's why I was doing that, but it's okay.
Like I was saying, I don't know what I am. I don't know if I'm an introvert and I don't know if I'm an extrovert, because I think I'm both. I think you could be both too, because my job is very extroverted. I speak to people all day long.
Yeah,
I'm not in solitude. But then I also really enjoy, I get a lot of energy doing that. I couldn't imagine myself at a desk job. That would be really miserable, just looking at me at a computer screen all day.
Yeah, but some people love that.
I know, which is great, but I also love coming home and not speaking to anybody for 5 hours. That's also one of my favorite things to do is to
here's
be
a good way to
in
do it,
solitude.
right? If you could picture a perfect day. Is a perfect day where you are...
Well, it depends on the day.
I'm just saying, a perfect
on
day.
My energy.
What's a perfect day? Would a perfect day be just going out to the beach and putting a chair in the sand and just having a nice book and maybe a nice juice and just sit there and just sit for 8 hours straight and just listen to the waves?
No, because I want to be around people.
Okay, so then you're probably an extrovert.
But then you're saying that being extroverted, this is where I get confused, because being extroverted is supposed to raise your energy when you're around people, but actually my energy starts to go down. When I'm done with work at the end of the day,
that's everybody.
I saw
so you gotta
clients.
find that balance, right? So it's everybody wants their periods of isolation. Everybody wants their periods of some kind of variety or more people in their life. The difference is, the best way to tell is when you come home from a party, what is your attitude?
Now, can you have different levels of extrovertedness?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it's probably, because you're an extrovert to the extreme. I'm probably an extrovert to not so much
I'm
the extreme.
I'm actually, this is how extroverted I am. I'm actually looking.
He wants people to live with us.
Yeah,
he wants roommates.
I want an entourage.
I'm not enough.
I'm about to pay employees just to hang out with me. That's how bad it's getting.
He's been begging for roommates ever since we lived in this house.
I loved roommates. That's how extroverted I am. But some people are so introverted, they're just I remember my old roommate, he's one of my best friends. He used to come home and he used to just open up the door and he would just say, "Oh my gosh, nobody's here right now." Because Marissa was leaving and he's just "Is nobody going to be home for the next couple hours?" He's and he was he could do that all day. So that's an introvert. Anyway, what we want to look at is, thank you, Ian. My position was fine, Marissa. Thank you. Anyway.
You're just annoying me at your stuff.
Well, you want to look at introvert, extroverted, because when you want to start identifying your strengths. So like we said, Myers-Briggs is a good one. StrengthsFinder 2.0 is one that I like because it gives a little more detail.
I love that. And it gives you, great detail because it lists like your top 3 strengths and goes into details of how you operate efficiently day to day. Like, what are some of like your personality qualities you want to get better at and such. So like I think my number 1 was optimist. What was your number 1?
My number 1 was competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So think about what your number 1 would be, and you want to start to figure out how you can play that. So competition, I like metrics. That's why on social media, it's really easy for me to figure out if I'm doing well, if a post is getting a lot of likes, if more people are jumping on our live, if more people are downloading my podcast. I'm trying to see if I can beat the next number all the time. So I need to set up my business so that I can keep beating somebody. So I can keep, like, for the longest time, it would piss me off if I found someone that was my age that made more money than me. It was just like the longest, and it's just like, why? It's just like, that's one of my core values is competition, is I want to win. It's just part of my soul to crave that. So, but a lot of my other friends, like they would have things like researchers. So people that they just consume a ton of knowledge. They just love it, and they just want to keep grabbing more knowledge. Some people would have like harmonizer, where they typically don't want conflict, and they don't want anyone to fight. So it's like, how do you start to take that and you start to build your business practice around it, or you start to use that in your life? So go to, you can Google, I just Google StrengthsFinder 2.0, take the test.
$11.
It's not very much money. It might be more now. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it also gives you an idea of different careers and professions you can do with it. So if you're you're right out of college, or you want to do a career change or something like that, try to find something with your strengths, because most of the time, it's also things that you're very interested in because you like things that you're good at. That's typically how people are. Usually, if you're really good at something and you don't like it, there's probably something you're even better at that you haven't explored yet. So it's like you want to start to think about these types of things as you go in to start designing your business. So those are 2 strategies you can do. I got a recommendation.
What is Joel saying up there? Can you read the rest of the comment?
Yeah, no, I was trying to click see more so I could see it, but I can't figure out. My finger's too fat. I'm too fat to read it. It says, imagine all 16 personalities in a huge mansion, in each room of the house, in your favorite room or something. And then he's writing some more, but I can't read the whole thing. Maybe you can figure that out.
I'm just so curious. I want to see what it... No, we can't see more. Okay.
Yeah. What else we got?
I'll read the comment afterwards.
Yeah, so you got to start to think about... which one are you? So, and how do you want to build that business? So think about it. If you're an introvert and you like to be around, you don't want to be around people all the time, but you want to you can focus your energy and take advantage of isolation a lot of times. You can start to do things like writing books or writing or blogging or tinkering or working on things like, right? All those types of things. Now, if you're someone that's more extroverted, then you might want to go out and interact with people. You might want to network. You might want to do sort of those things. And if you guys can partner with somebody that complements you, ba-boom, now you're in business. So you can have one dude that does like the networking and the speaking and the sales. Then you can have another dude or another dudette, I guess. You could have another person that kind of does like the hands-on. They want to be like in the weeds. They want to focus. They want to stay behind the scenes. And that's a great dichotomy if you can find that balance. So if you can partner with someone like that, it's extremely beneficial. But there's so many different personality types that you can fall into. The key is to figuring out what are you really good at, and then tripling down, quadrupling down on those things that you're good at.
Well, yeah, how can you differentiate yourself from the rest of the world and just be the top at whatever category you're at by tripling down on your strengths? That's something that we're really both looking into in 2019, because we've just heard so many awesome, like Tim Ferriss, just so many great stories of him doing the exact same thing and finding his niche in business. And now he has his own category, which is incredible. So yeah, check out the 4-day, what is it? Why am I drawing a
4-Hour Work Week is
Week.
Tim Ferriss's book. Great book. Here's another one to do, guys. Trial and error. Just trial and error. Start trying stuff out to see if it really sticks with you. So you might take this survey and you might say, okay, I came out as harmonizer. Excuse me, what do I do with that? and then you go into trying out different careers or professions or businesses where you can start to be this type of characteristic, where you can start to put this type of strength out into the marketplace. And that might be something online, that might be something here or there. And you might find as you start trying stuff, getting into action, you'll start to see what's sticking. So throw stuff at the wall. Seriously. Throw it at the wall and try stuff. Just try it all. You've got time, because if you don't get into action, you're never going to figure it out.
Well, I think a really good example is like one of our good friends is getting into, well, just, was very interested in real estate, started pursuing real estate. Is he now a realtor, right?
Yeah, so he started buying multifamilies, and he got his real estate agent license, and now he is figuring out that it's not necessarily for him. But what he did, he took action immediately. He says, I want to try this real estate
and
thing
now
out.
you know.
He got into it, and then he got his
but
agent
also
certification.
What's really cool is that he learned this skill that many people will not learn when it comes to real estate and really just like totally diving into this. But hey, now you know, like, this is not something I want to do for the rest of my life, but this is a really cool skill that I have developed that I can take into my next career or my next profession. And you're also not pondering for the rest of your life, like, maybe I should have took that leap. So just taking action on the things that, you're really passionate about, that you feel like, you might have a really high strength in.
Guys, take action. Just take action. Especially for some of you guys that might be a little bit more cautious. Maybe some of your strengths are like logic, reason. You might be more skeptical. Those might be things you're very good at. So you might want to compliment someone that's just really impulsive. You might need to find those people and figure out how you can bring service and numbers and analysis. For example, my accountant, super introverted, does not have very good people skills.
Zero people
Probably
skills.
Negative people skills. But he's so detail oriented.
Probably the worst person to talk to on the phone.
Yeah, he'd actually have a ton more business if he was a little more friendly. But that's what I want. Because I'm not going to go into the weeds at his level, and I'm not going to like analyze something to that level of detail to make it perfect. I'm not going to do that. So I need to hire him, and I don't really care if he's a kind of a dick, because it's like I can handle it, Marissa can handle it, but it's like. And I'm getting all the business for myself because my strength is getting business and his strength is figuring it out to like what's the best way to kind of crunch these numbers to make them fit. So like that is how one example of how I can use my strengths to build business and his strength to build business. So you want to start to partner with those types of people.
I mean, this is a great example right here on one of the comments, that how this person's cousin was in accounting for 2 years and then switched over to being a medical professional, a doctor, and now loving what she does because she took action in those directions.
So take action, trial and error.
Beautiful example. Thank you.
It's okay to throw things at the wall. If you're just a starting out entrepreneur, It's okay to try stuff out. You guys have seen, I've launched so many different programs over the years to see which ones stick, which ones are successful, which ones don't. It's okay. And it's okay to figure out which ones don't work, which ones aren't making money, which ones aren't making the amount of money that you wanted to, which ones are really killing it. You want to try those things out. Marissa's launched a whole bunch of different programs over the last year.
And if you're afraid of, because I made a video of this on my Instagram TV or IGTV or whatever, on if you are afraid of committing to something and then not following through because of your lack of interest or realizing like, wow, this is not for me, and then now afraid of the fact of people knowing that you quit or failed at what you were setting out to do, nobody remembers that. Nobody has any idea. 1 year ago, like today, I was actually competing for a bikini competition. I was on prep. And that is when I had this huge realization that I do not need to step back on stage for people to take me seriously in the fitness industry. I do not need to be 7% body fat. Does anybody remember that I dropped out of my show? No. And if you did, comment, but I highly doubt it. So it's something that you're setting out to do. But then don't be afraid of, like, I didn't have the follow through. What are people going to think of me now? Nobody remembers. Nobody's paying attention. And if they are, they clearly have a lot of time on their hands.
Here's what I will say, though. If you're going to throw stuff at the wall, stick with it long enough to really know that it's something you don't want to do. Don't just give up because it's hard. Don't just give up because wow, this is uncomfortable at times. Give up when you know it's something that your soul is not aligned to doing, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to that's why I always say the 6-month rule. If you are going to throw something at the wall, make it stick for 6 months and then give up. Or a lot of entrepreneurs give it the 3-year rule. They say
not give up, just transition. How can you make
pivot.
this better? Pivot. That's the word. Yes.
Yes. Pivot.
Good word.
So like entrepreneurs, someone will say 3 years. So if you're sticking with a business for 3 years, that's kind of like the backstop. If
There's
it's not
nothing wrong with pivoting. Yes.
if it's
I'm
not
so
making
happy
money
you
after
came up with
3
that
years,
word.
pivot, right? It's just change it. So like keep throwing things at the wall, keep your brand, but remember the law of category. The law of category. Remember, what
it full
is your
circle here.
category that you are using? How do you start to use, like, how do you break into a new thing? Differentiation. What makes you unique? What is your unique value proposition? How are you using your strength in your unique value proposition? That's what you want to do. So find out what your strengths are. Really sit on them. Figure it out. Know yourself. A lot of you guys probably already know. So if you're going to, like, for example, one of my mission is to coach leaders through storytelling. One of my strengths is I'm a good talker. I'm a good communicator. I take very complicated things and I make them easy for people to understand. So I'm using that in my business, and that's part of the strength. Why does that differentiate it? Because if I can be the best communicator, I can be the best leadership coach, for example, right? So if you want to start to think about what are your strengths, but if I'm trying to sit there and work on all the things that I'm bad at, then I'm not going to be sitting there spending all the time breaking into a new industry, because you're going to only excel upon your strengths. So that's what we really wanted to hit on today, because this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Peter Drucker talks about it in Managing Oneself. John C. Maxwell talks about it in all of his freaking 30 books or whatever he's written. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time. Tim Ferriss talks about it. I don't know how many people need to say the same thing, but it's like, if you don't know what you're really good at yet, go figure it out. StrengthsFinder 2.0, Myers-Briggs. Go try things, trial and error, get into action. Because if you're sitting around waiting to find, I'm really good at something, so I really just want to figure out what it is, just try some stuff. Try public speaking if you're an extrovert. Try tinkering in your garage and woodworking if you're an introvert. I don't care. Just try some stuff.
Okay, I know I heard this quote somewhere. I can't remember where, but it was knowing your weaknesses enough to know they're not your strengths. So like knowing, like being aware of like your weaknesses, knowing them enough, like having the ability to do a little bit to know like, okay, these are not my strengths. That was a really good quote, and I can't remember who said that. But I did hear that somewhere.
I mean, there's so many people that are like, what do your friends notice about you? What do
Yeah, what do other people say about you? Oh, I just had this great conversation.
Because what do we do? What do we do all the time when we receive compliments? Yeah. We just throw them away. Right? We always throw away the compliments. But when you guys learn, that's why I have it right behind me. My coach always tells me I can receive this, right? So if you can receive compliments, you can receive the compliment and understand what you're really good at. So what do people compliment you on all the time? A lot of ladies do this, right? A lot of women do this. They always like, oh, I get a compliment, and they just throw it away. Or if it's from a man, it's like, yeah, whatever. He's just trying to whatever. It's like, think about it for a second. Like, what are your strengths? Listen to what other people say about you. What do people enjoy about you? What do people like about you? Because we're 11 times more likely to focus on the negative, for good reason, because negative things can kill you. That's how we evolved. But let's focus on the positive. What are people saying positively about me? And then how does that interact? There's a couple different strategies right here we just went over of how you can find your strengths. I bet if you guys signed up for a call with me, in about 15 minutes of you and I had a video call, I could figure out exactly what you're good at just by observing you, just by seeing your posture, how you interact. I could immediately tell if you're an introvert or an extrovert. If you're like not using your hands and you're just kind of slouched over and you're kind of hanging out like this, and you're just like, or you're like really nodding and I can tell you're genuinely interested, you're probably an introvert. If you're someone that's like waiting to talk the whole time and you're just like waiting till I'm done so you can tell me something, you're probably an extrovert. So it's like I can immediately tell these types of things, and right there we got one out of the way. Now let's figure out what you're interested in. What do you really like? Those are things that are very, very, very simple to identify when you're working with someone like me, or you're working with someone like Marissa, or someone that's very in tune to that, because that's what I'm immediately looking for. On our introduction call, that's immediately what I look for in people. It's like, what are they really good at? How can I figure this out? And I could tell people like really good at math just by looking at them practically. It's just like, wow, you're probably really good at math. They're like, how'd you know that? I'm like, well, you just have that. It can just tell. It's just like the way you're analyzing things, the questions and the follow-ups that you're asking me. You have a very analytical mind. You're trying to put it all into place. So it's like you probably have a very logical, deductive way of measuring the world and assessing things. So those are types of things that I encourage you guys to explore with yourselves. It's like, figure out, what are you good at? What are other people saying about you? If you don't know what your strengths are, sign up for a call. I will probably tell you within the first 15 minutes of talking to you what you're really good at, just by talking with you. So there are lots of things you can do with this. And it's about, you can't go anywhere. I think you can't go anywhere unless you build upon your strengths, unless you really find out what they are and
then
use
create
them.
your own category or dominate the category that already exists.
Yeah, see, if there's a category that already exists and you can be the best at it, like I'm talking about the 1% of all people in that category, that's what you're aiming for. And if you can't be the 1% of all people in that category, create a category that you can be 1% of all people in that category. You might find a niche, you might find a market, you might find someone that's willing to offer you a monetary exchange or some type of transaction of value. So think about that as you guys go into the weekend and you start to think about what's going on. If you're going to a bar and you want to say, what are people noticing about me? What am I good at doing? Am I good at talking, dancing, interacting with people? Am I charismatic? Those are all very good things to know, because that could translate into sales. That could translate into public speaking. That could translate into if you're going to have a successful podcast or not. So really think about what you guys want to do.
And with that being said, we are off to the gym.
Yeah, we got to go work out. So thanks a lot, guys, for hopping on once again. This is Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. We do these podcasts every Saturday morning live, or you can always check them back out on my link in my bio. Facebook, you can go to aaronjarmstrong.com to find all of the stuff that we have going on in our world. Marissa, where can they find you?
And you can find me at Marissa Armstrong with 2 G's at the end on Instagram, as well as on Facebook, Marissa Armstrong. Request me as a friend. And my business, marissasfitboutique.com, is the website, as well as the Facebook page, Marissa's Fit Boutique. So check us out there.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, guys, for hopping on, sticking with us. Have a great weekend.
Goodbye.